Fine. Next, we'll talk about behavior modeling. Now, these two are very assumed to be very similar. That in flow also, we are trying to define that how the information will be processed, which inputs will be given, what output will be generated. So it is generally assumed that flow and behavior are very much similar to each other. But uh, let me give you an alternate perspective of this. That flow is just how data is being processed by the system, but behavior will also define how those particular processes will behave in case of certain events and stimuli. Basically, what events and stimuli are, let's say, let me give you an example from the traffic management itself. So, let's say again that accident report processing system. Let's say we have a process called accident report processing. What it takes is it takes input an accident report and it gives output as a some alerts to our police department and medical department and so on. So that was depicted into our flow model, that DFD. Now, in case of behavior, we have to ensure that then this particular accident report processing module will be initiated. So whenever accident report is generated, this module should be initiated. So that is the difference. What input it will take is defined by our DFT. But when that module will be initiated is defined by our behavior models. Right? Now it should be clear. So what we are trying to depict is how our system will work in case of or how our user will interact with the system. How different operations of within our system will be invoked. That is what we are trying to model using our behavioral modeling. What will be the behavior, what will be the reactions of the system in case of many events and many stimuli. Now events can be caused externally as well as internally. External events will be caused by either the users, user who are trying to access the system, or by certain let's say some sensing units, or let's say by some timer programs that are trying to do a repeated job after some time again and again and so on. So these are events, and stimuli can be conditions that are met during the processing. Let's say you were processing the accident report and you have found that the person who has been hit in that accident is a VIP, is, let's say, it is a minister or something like that, or it is some kind of a police personnel and so on, or whether the accident report includes that the accident has been created by some terrorist and so on. And in that case, a further alert has to be generated to the respective district administration, to the respective government, or let's say to the respective home ministry or any further departments as per the information put in uh, inside our accident report. So that is stimuli. So stimuli could be based on the information is being processed, and events can be external and internal events, and they are not directly associated with the input being provided to the system. So that is main difference between events and stimuli. Right? So the difference should be very clear that in flow we only provide the details about input and output of the system, whereas in behavior we also talk about when that flow will be initiated, when that flow will be defined within the execution timeline of our system. Right. So basically, the another aspect is that in behavioral modeling we try to identify event stimuli and associated sequence of steps to be taken. So whenever event stimuli will be observed by the system, what will be the steps taken by the system? So the first diagram that we use to model our behaviors within our system is state chart diagram. तो आप लोगों ने कितने लोगों ने स्टेट मशीन्स पढ़ी है? फाइनाइट ऑटोमेटा, स्टेट मशीन्स, ऐसे कुछ नाम सुने? ओके, तो आपको बेसिक आइडिया है कि स्टेट मशीन क्या होती है? तो बेसिकली स्टेट मशीन is a concept that existed way before even computer science was created, or way before even the first computer was created. So it is an engineering way of defining a system in terms of states and transitions. So let's say, even if we talk about, let's say, a fan can have two states: an on state, and an off state. So ideally, a fan is usually in an off state, where no electricity is being flowed and the blades of the fan are still as is. Whereas in the on state, the electricity will start flowing within its motor and the blades will start rotating. So these are two states within our system. Okay. So in our first state, it is an ideal state. Whenever we will observe that fan, it will be in an off state only, right? So in an off state, what a user can do is it can switch on or turn on the electricity to be flowing within the system. There is no other operation being provided by that fan to be executed, right? But once that switch is turned on or the power is given to that particular fan, then it will move to another state called on state, and now the available options for the user will change. What input can be given to that system will change. Now in an on state, what user can do is it can turn off the switch or turn the power supply off, right? So that is what a state modeling is. What state modeling is. So in for every system, we define such states and transitions between them. So there will be certain states within our system, and we'll define the events or we'll define the user inputs that can cause the migration from one state to another. Let's say in context of a software, let's say you have opened a notepad, right? In case of notepad, its default state is to wait for a key input from the user so that it can display that character on its screen, right? So let's say the user presses a key. In that state, what it can respond to is an event of pressing the key, right? Now once user presses the key, it will go on to another state where now it will again accept another key, but at the same time, in that state, it also has some unsaved data within its text editor. So now in the original state, what user will do, it can either type something or close the notepad. If you close the notepad in that state, there will be no message to be displayed to the user because no changes were made to the text editor of the notepad. But now, since the user has pressed some key, it has now moved to another state where now it has some unsaved data within its text editor. And if user will now choose the option of closing the notepad, it has to do a certain other operation, which is to notify the user that whether you want to save this file or not, right? So that is how in context of software we define states and we define transitions between states and so on. So in context of this home safety system, let's say originally our control panel has to be powered on. So whenever our control panel will start, this is our entry point. We can start stop the our start stop switch will be turned to power on, and now the system will reset to an initial state. So in initial state, what it is trying to do is it will do a set system status inactive, set display message 1 starting system, set display message 2 please wait, set display status slow blinking, and then do run diagnostics. It will run diagnostics to check whether all the sensors, whether all the connections, whether the internet connection, everything is working or not. So once it detects that the system is okay, so there is an event called system okay. Now it is generated by the system itself. It is not an external event, right? So in that case, now it will move to another state called idle state. Or in other case, if something wrong has happened, the internet connection is not available, or some kind of some sensors are not working, then it will go to a failure detected transition and it will exit again. So now the user will have to go to the provider, service provider, or the service center and get its device repaired in that case, right? From idle state, again, the case could be the user can press reset button and then it will again go to this resetting state and do the certain operations again, run diagnostics and everything. And if the system is okay, again, it can get back to the idle state. So reset is more like a restart of the system, right? In idle, when it will enter an idle state, what it will do, it will set system status as inactive. Till now, it is not activated. Although the system is okay, all the sensors are working, everything, but it is not monitoring our home. So the system status is inactive. Display message is ready. Display message 2 is blank. So there will be second line of message somewhere which is blank as of now. And display status is steady. So the system is started, but it is in steady state. It is not doing anything. Now what it will do is it will wait for a key hit. So this is an event that it is waiting for key hit, and when that this particular event will happen, it will handle that key, right? So in case that handle key is activation, it is an activation key. It will activate our system. This transition will happen from this state to this state, and now our system will enter into this monitoring system status state. Here, as soon as the system enters in this state, the system status will be changed to monitoring. Display messages will be updated. Display status will be changed, and now this particular activity will start called monitor and control system. And at the same time, it is also again waiting for this particular event to happen called key hit, and it will do some operations based on this particular event again, right? So this is how we model the behavior of a particular system. Now in this case, many hardware properties are actually associated, but similar process can be made out using a pure software, a PC based software also. In case of a software also, it only now again the point has to be understood here is that where these state chart diagrams are required, it is not okay to define a state chart for each and every function of the system. Again, as we are repeating again and again, we are only trying to make a minimal, simple and efficient SRS. So we do not draw all diagrams for all the functionalities of our system. We'll try to understand that where the behaviors are so complicated that those behaviors has to be depicted through a state chart diagram. So in this case, if we do not have this state chart diagram, probably we will lose some information, we'll lose some details provided by our customer, that there should be an idle state. So system should not go directly from resetting to monitoring system status. There should be some activation deactivation button also. So if this information is not depicted in this state chart, probably there is a case that we forget to give that activation button into our control panel. Then our system will become uh, unacceptable. So the customer will say, I specifically mentioned that there should be an activation deactivation button. So that is why again this diagram is important. So all the behaviors of that system can be depicted. So again, we have to always ensure that which diagrams are necessary in our context and so on. So to understand this diagram, there are few other terminologies associated. So these are states. So all these boxes, they are states within our system. All these arrows, they are transitions. They are transition between these states. And within a state, there are entry activities, activities which are performed when the system will enter this particular state. These are not repeated again and again. They will only be performed once. And then there are intermediate actions. They will be performed continuously by the system until the system in this particular state. So all such activities we define them by do clause. So the system will keep on performing these actions, this activity, until unless the system is moved away from this particular state. And then there are some non-transiting activity where the system will keep on waiting for a certain event or some particular activity, which will not yield any output, but rather they are just there to be performed by the system to wait for any transition and so on. And finally, there are start and stop states within our system where we'll define the start and stop of our complete flow, this complete state machine. And it is always important to have some start and stop states, some start and stop signals within our system. Otherwise, the system can become unusable. Fine. Okay. Again, in context of state chart diagrams, there could be differable triggers. So, noting, I'm pointing to this particular point here that there could be some cases where some triggers are deferable. So, not all triggers has to be taken care of right now and there. Okay, there could be some events which will be queued up into some kind of a data structure, some kind of mechanism will be there for queuing up, or there could be some triggers which can be ignored in a certain state of the system. Let's say, for example, there is some fire within our system, and the system is supposed to create an alert for that fire. But in that case, if someone is pressing the keys again and again and again to, let's say, distract our system from sending the alarm, then that will be a system failure. In that case, we have to defer all the triggers caused by pressing of a key, and rather we should first process the fire alarm, then take care of the keys pressed by the user. Okay, so some triggers can be deferable also. So some triggers can be deferable in a context, in a certain context, and some triggers can be completely ignored also, so not to be executed even later. So that could also be the case. Fine. Other than these, there are some other features of state chart diagrams. You can study them from the given link. There are substates. From the states, we can define substates also. So substates will provide further detailed behavioral modeling, where after entering a particular state, system will go into a sequence of substates or a parallel sequence of substates also to achieve the objective of that particular single state. Fine. And there can be history states in case of parallel execution, parallel scope of states available. We can have some history states to know that where we ended up the last time. So there could be some situations, some examples can be studied on this, where we are looking for, we are embedding some history states to keep a memory of what we did last time when we entered this particular state and so on. And finally, third, there are concurrent states, which are states where the system can be in two states or two or more states at the same time. So such states are called concurrent states. System can be in these multiple states at the same time. So, although this is very vague, but there could be some cases where these aspects can be used for modeling the behavior of the system. Okay. Next, we will talk about sequence diagrams. So, in case of sequence diagrams, again, the state chart depicted the behavior of the system as a whole. So where the system will be, which in which state the system will be at any point of time, and what will be the transitions, what will be the events, what will be user actions that will define the movement within the states of the system. But that is not always sufficient. We are taking the whole system as a unit, and it could be the case that that is not sufficient in case when our system is decomposed into many parallel executable subsystems. So in those cases, we go for sequence diagram. In case of sequence diagrams, there are multiple objects within our system. Let's say there is homeowner, there is control panel, there is system, there is sensors, and so on. And these objects can exist parallelly at the same time. And sequence diagrams tries to model the communication between these different objects within our system. So let's try to understand this particular sequence diagram. So from the initial state, there is a start state here. From the start state, when a system ready message is given to the homeowner, it will start existing. So these rectangle blocks depict, depict an activation of this object or the lifeline of this object. So the homeowner object will will be activated here, and it will be activated till here. So in this duration of activation, what it will do, it will give a message to our control panel, and that message will be password. So the password entered by homeowner. Now the control panel will always keep on reading. So it is keeping on reading. So this particular activation of this control panel will exist always from the start till a particular input is given to the control panel. Once the input is given, it will now migrate to another state called comparing state. Right? Now in the comparing state, now it will send some input to our system. That will be a request lookup for the password to check whether the password is correct or not, and the system will return a result based on what the input is given by this comparing state. Now if the password is correct, because the comparator will compare the password received from the system, if password is correct, it will again send a message to system, and then system will activate our sensors. So fine. So if the password is correct, the control panel will check whether the password is correct or not. And if the password is correct, we'll send a request to our system, and system will request activation to our sensors. Now our sensors will start activating. So there could be a case some sensors can take more time as compared to these other objects. So these are all software components, right? So this is our user. It will be the slowest. It is our software. It will be fast. It is also a software. It will be fast. But these sensors can be, they are hardware devices. They can be slow as well. So let's say these devices take some time for activity. So this much time is spent by these devices for activation, right? So during that, the control panel will enter a lock state, and also this lock state can be entered when the password is incorrect. So if the password is incorrect, or number of tries, the maximum is exceeds the maximum number of tries, or the timer is greater than lock time, then the system will enter a lock state, and the system will come back from lock state. Let's say this is our lock state, this A is denoting our lock state. The system will enter a lock state where it is not accepting any further inputs from the homeowner. After some time, when the timer will expire, again from this state, from this A state, the control panel can enter into a reading state. So again, this is an not a direct flow, but rather an event oriented flow from control panel to control panel itself through a separate state, right? And when the activation will be successful, a message will be given from sensors to the control panel, and from control panel a message will be given to the homeowner saying that the activation is successful. Now there could be two options. The homeowner could wait till it receives the activation successful message. In that case, the timeline of this homeowner would have been this much bigger, right? But our system is designed in such a way that homeowner can enter its password and click on activate button and go away, and the system will work on its own. And when the activation is okay, it will display an activation message, and that's okay. Now the user may or may not have to be there to see or perform any other operation on that system. So this is just one of the functions, one of the processes depicted using a sequence model, where we are trying to define all the messages, all the communications between different subsystems and different objects of our system. Right? Again, as I'm repeating again, in all the cases, it is not okay or it is not required, and it may not be possible to design a sequence diagram. Only some certain processes will require drawing a sequence diagram for model. Okay. Apart from the structure shown in this diagram, here we are seeing a lifeline. So this is lifeline of the homeowner. On this lifeline, there are some activations. Some at some point of time, this particular object will be activated. We are seeing transitions between different objects. From one object to object, another object, we see transitions and messages on the transitions. And apart from that, we also see seen some objects. Other than that, in sequence diagram, there are some other constructs called creation messages, destruction messages. So there could be a case that the object may not exist at all until that point of time. So in this case, as you can see, this system was existing from the very start, from the very start of the system, as well as when the homeowner existed, when the control panel existed, when the sensors existed, the system also existed. But there could be another case that the system, maybe let's say it could be a detachable device. So in that case, we have to depict it like this. And then there will be a creation message from here to here saying that this particular system is now created at this point. Okay. So similarly, there could be destruction messages. So in that case, the timeline will start from here and not from the very start of the system. Okay. There could be destruction messages. Then there could be recursive messages. So messages given to ourselves. Okay. Then there will be self messages. The difference between self message and recursive messages: self message will cause a transition from current state to newer state, while the recursive messages will not cause such transition, and the message will be taken up by the same state itself, from the same activation itself. And there will be return messages. So these are return messages in against some request, some response is given, then we call them return messages. And then there will be call and duration messages. So call will be calling up a particular object to start its activation, and duration messages will be depicted like this. So if some time is being spent in the transition of that message, then we draw a slanted line. A slanted line will depict that some duration is being spent during the transition of that message. So and apart from that, there are nodes, fragments, and operators. We won't discuss all such things here, because then sequence diagrams is a very big topic, and it is beyond our scope. But if you are interested, you can go and see that what fragments and operators and nodes are, and how they are drawn within this particular diagram again. Fine. So this is how we complete the modeling part of our requirements engineering topic. And today we have seen the two modeling aspects, flow modeling and behavioral modeling. And with this, we can completely model our system. So we have talked about structural parts of our system, and we have also talked about operational parts of our system. ठीक है, तो अभी तक अपने जो डिस्कस किया है, उसमें अगर कोई डाउट्स हैं, कुछ पूछना है तो पूछ सकते हैं। ठीक है, फिर अपन नेक्स्ट टॉपिक की तरफ मूव करेंगे।